What is going on, everybody? Bobby Fye and Eric Sheets-Haber. We're going to be taking a look at the main slate. We're doing this on Thursday, so obviously some things are subject to change. We have a lot of trades or some big trades that we'll see how much they dictate the slate and stuff. But there's a lot of games that I like here, and there's a lot of, I think, very questionable value that's going to show up that we have to sort of decide whether or not we want to roll with. So that's sort of my initial thoughts. Sheets, what do you think? Anything from an overview before we?
Well, when I first did did my projections and a build yesterday, I had it as a 1-game slate. And we'll talk about it when we get there, I guess. And I'm curious to see what you think in general. Again, things are going to change, whatever, and obviously those trades are going to affect things as well. But before we even get into that, I mean, today's just like a ultra degen day. Here, by the way, this is like my new guy, my new favorite Discord guy. The MR don't I like none, y'all?
Oh, yeah.
I don't know exactly who he is, but yeah, he's my new favorite. But today's like ultra degen day. I mean, like I have, well, first we're doing this, and then my dad's actually coming out. I'm seeing him for lunch. He's visiting Stacy and whatever. And then I have MMA I have to do. We have the showdown. We have the baseball we have to do. The showdown slate, which is completely wild. I think like the optimal lineup is going to leave like 12,000 on the table.
I think you're right about that, by the way.
You know, with these Saints guys, and not to mention your Valley guy or whatever. So then there's that. So between baseball, the classic slate, the showdown in baseball, both showdowns, the NFL showdown. We're already halfway through a 2-game LOL slate. We haven't even talked about basketball coming up next week. It's a little crazy out there.
Well, I've been doing a lot of studying with basketball, at least. So yeah, you're right. There's a lot of stuff going on today, but I feel very ready for next week.
What do you think of that big dude, by the way? What do you think of Edie?
I liked him. I thought that in this type of year that it, like I said before the draft, I thought he could go first or he could go in the second round, and it wouldn't surprise me. But I said whoever gets him, you're not going to be upset about this guy. I mean, pretty weird that you could be the best player in college basketball for 2 years, be that size, and people are just going to say, oh no, we don't want that guy because we don't do that. No. He's going to start this year. I mean, he's going to start.
Yep.
Right. He's a huge favorite to win the Rookie of the Year at the moment.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, massive.
What about that Japanese guy? I don't want to butcher and get canceled. I want to say Yamamoto, but it's not that. But it's something that to me as a white guy sounds like that.
Oh, you mean that the point guard for the Grizzlies?
Yes.
Yeah, he'll never play anyway, so I don't know.
Oh, that sucks. Really?
Well, I mean, John Morant's going to play 40 minutes a game.
I guess so. Well, Moran will be injured within six games.
He doesn't get injured. He just gets suspended.
Oh, that's it.
But some of it both. I'm just kidding. He gets injured. All right. Well, we'll get into it. Good to see everybody. Your boy is asking about being live. I don't know if we're going to go live. I'll post in the Discord all my early stuff. But I'm going to have a hard time finding the time to get live. I've got a company call after this, and then I've got to do a few practical things anyway. So I'm going to try to do what I can, but I'm not sure. I can't promise live today for baseball. All right,
Rick, I think that might be a little bit too much info, but I feel for you, and it's a lot of pressure.
I'm sorry to hear that, man.
It's a lot of pressure to put out. You need to win a DFS contest to move. I don't know what to tell you about that, but I guess we could start by Detroit, Minnesota.
Let's start. I guess we just got to get it started here. Do you got to pull your screen up here?
I'll share my screen. I'm going to share the DraftKings if that's okay.
Perfect. Yeah, that's fine. I think especially for these shows, it's just helpful to go through it. Yeah. All right. So, and we'll touch everything up 11 a.m. Eastern Sunday. You guys know the drill. All right. So we're talking about your first one you have is Detroit, Minnesota, right?
Yep.
Okay. So why don't you start this one off, because I actually think I might have more interest in this game than you do.
Well, I like Darnold. I have him rated as like third best quarterback. And I have Justin Jefferson rated as my top receiver. So I guess it's kind of silly for me to say I don't have any interest in this, and the Minnesota side too. And Laporte, we'll get to Laporte in a minute. That's pretty much all I had as far as like top plays go. But I did have them as this game in general as a pretty good stacking game, because I also have on the other side St. Brown. I don't have Jamison Williams rated that highly, but you never really have him rated that highly. He always has big upside. The only problem with doing this is, as you can see pretty quickly, you're spending a lot of money. with two 8K receivers if you wanted to do it this way. But Darnold certainly looks good. Jefferson certainly looks good. St. Brown certainly looks good. As far as the running backs, I'm not really getting to too much of either of any of this.
Yeah, so this is I like this game in general. I am not a fan of the running game. Obviously, Aaron Jones being questionable is a big piece, but I've said this. I mean, look, Detroit's one of those teams you just can't run the ball on them. Nobody has been able to. I'm not going to just start doing it now. And oddly, Minnesota is one of the other teams that you haven't been able to really run the ball on to the extent that maybe people thought that you would before the year. I'm interested in the passing game. Jefferson, I agree, is the top just raw receiver. But I also like Amon-Ra St. Brown. I also like Jameson Williams. I also like Jordan Addison a little bit. And, look, if you're getting really freaky with the stack, you could consider throwing Naylor in. That might be a little too thin. But I also really like Laporta. So this is a game I like a lot of pieces where I probably won't play the quarterback, but I like the passing game, which feels a little funny to say. But I like this game. This is one of the target games for me this week. So I'm very, very high on it. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get to either of the quarterbacks, but like I said, it's going to be pass funnel, so it makes some sense. It's just I think these guys have the ceiling to win the slate. Yeah, maybe, but it's not my first thought to use them at quarterback. So I like the game though quite a bit. Tennessee Buffalo.
So Buffalo picked up Amari Cooper. I'm going to have to say that I don't know if some of these trades should be allowed. I don't know what you know what I mean. I don't know. I know there are rules. Maybe I'm being like okay boomerish about this, but that trade would be disallowed in a fantasy league. That I promise you. I mean, finally getting a year where Buffalo's completely loaded at the receiver position.
Yeah,
and then you say, okay, no problem. Let's let these guys dump Amari Cooper when their season's over, pretty much.
Right.
Anyway, he might play, he might not play, according to the last information that at least is within the DraftKings app.
Yeah.
I wouldn't play him. I can't imagine just a receiver just kind of stepping in and being like a big deal here. So I don't know. I'm probably off of pretty much most of this game. I mean, I think Buffalo kind of handles them. I think I don't know if Tennessee can do much on the other side, if you want to know the truth. So this is kind of gross, but I'm probably just going to be off of this game.
Yeah, I think that. I mean, look, we don't have official word on James Cook this week. If he doesn't play,
I forgot about that guy. Okay,
yeah, you want to play some of the Ray Davis. I'm kind of surprised he was lower owned on that showdown slate.
He looked good too.
He looked really good, and he looked great. He looked great in his limited touches before that. Even actually, there's a lot of good words about him anyway coming out. But yeah, this is not a game that I think is the favorite. But with Buffalo's inability to stop the run, I think we have to at least consider Tony Pollard as a pretty high level play. He's going to be pretty popular, so I don't love the popular Tony Pollard. But I'm definitely interested, especially as Tajay Spears is supposed to be out, which means Pollard should have like an 80% work share, which is basically the highest you can get as a running back these days. Both receivers from Tennessee look appealing for their price. I'd like to see Will Levis actually be able to complete. I mean, there's a thing going around about it. He threw the 8 targets to Ridley, and Ridley had no catches last week. And literally, they were some of the worst passes you've ever seen.
I mean, those shouldn't even be targets. I mean,
well, no, they're targets. Some of them he was open. He just would throw it 10 yards short.
Well, that's what I mean. Those shouldn't be considered targets. You know what I mean? Because unless the guy has a reasonable chance to catch the ball, I mean, it's ridiculous.
Yeah. The only other thing is to keep an eye on. I don't even know if it really matters. Well, I think Kincaid would be in play, but not a priority. I think Okonkwo and Pollard are the two highest level of interest I have in this game. I will say that Will Levis at 4,700 is going to continue to tempt me in a script where he could get there. But I just am so frustrated with his arm. And this guy was last year looked like he could throw it as well as anyone. But at the end of the year, and now he literally can't throw the ball. So. But we've seen those things turn around. We've seen the ugly Deshaun Watson win $1 million for someone this year already. So maybe Will Levis has a chance. But right now, this is not no priority. Just Pollard would be the only priority from this game for me.
I think that I think no matter I don't know. I think no matter what Buffalo does, they crush them here. I mean, listen, they've given up stuff, but look at their schedule. I mean, first of all, remember at Miami when they had Tua, I mean, they slaughtered them. Then they slaughtered Tampa, and then they ran into like some spots, at Baltimore, at Houston, at Jets. You know what I mean? Like this is a freaking get right spot, and they got Cooper. It's almost like a fixed game for a blowout. I don't know.
It feels like it is a fixed game for a blowout. I agree with that, but at the same time, I have been saying, although I'm going to change my tune now that once Cooper gets going, because I have been a non-believer, and I didn't see anything on Monday night that makes me believe in Buffalo. They did not look especially good to me that night. They just happened to win the game, except for Ray Davis looked like the best player on the field.
Yeah.
Anyway, but we can move on to the next one, which I believe is Seattle Atlanta for you. Yes, Seattle.
Yeah, this to me is this is where it's the one game slate game for me. At least when I first ran everything, I mean, I was getting, no matter what I did, like 78% of this game. And both sides of this, like you should see some of these stacks that I had. I had like three Atlantas, 2 Seattles, 3 Seattles, 2 Atlantas, just basically almost treating this like it was a showdown slate. I don't know how these projections are going to change during the course of the week, but Geno looks like the best quarterback. And then you got Bijan and Kenneth Walker, 2 of the top 5 running backs, and then pretty much any receiver on the field looks good between the Seattle guys, and Njigba and Metcalf being the best, and then Atlanta, Drake London, Kyle Pitts, and Ray McLeod is cheap. You know what I mean? Like this is who would have thought, that Atlanta games would be like Coors at this point. So yeah, it's kind of hard to ignore right now. I mean, I imagine it's going to be, if it's popping for me that hard, it's got to be really popular. So we'll see.
Yeah, I think it's going to be popular, but I love it. It's a great, even if I'm not stacking it, I find myself basically with a player from this game in almost every lineup, at least maybe 2 players from this game in every lineup is probably the way it ends up. Favorites would be, I do think Geno makes sense as like a cash game quarterback this week. I mean, he throws the ball a ton. I think Cousins, you could make the case for on the other side. So I like both that. I like the running backs. I like both Walker and Bijan Robinson. A little bit of edge to Robinson, but it's pretty close. And I like, in order of the receivers, I like London Mooney London Mooney then McLeod. But again, I'm happy with getting just one of them. I think somebody's going to have a big game, at least one of them this week. And I love DK. I love the ownership on Jackson Smith and Jigba being lower because he's more expensive than Lockett. I really believe in the JSN, and I think we should keep just playing him. So very, very high on this game as a whole. But yeah, I mean, I look at some of my priorities from this week, and basically I've got like 8 in this game. So yeah, I hear what you're saying about that one game slate thing. The one thing that could, I think Atlanta's defense might be a little bit better than they've looked. That's the only thing I'm going to throw out there as a potential cog in this game, because this feels like an air it out. Just could be a real shootout. But I'm just throwing that out there that I think Atlanta hasn't played up to their potential defensively, and I think they'll make some adjustments. So that's it. But I like everything in this one. I mentioned all the ones, so we can move forward. But this, and
if you are going to play like a lot of this game, you got to play like a lot of these guys. Like don't dismiss Tyler Lockett. You know what I mean? Even though listen, obviously the alpha guys and the kind of cool guys to play are Metcalf and JSN. Lockett can have those games sometimes, and if he gets lucky and gets the touchdown instead of one of the other guys in one of these drives, I mean, you're going to want to have him. He's going to be, I imagine, much lower owned than the other 2.
I think he's going to be higher owned because Smith and right now the projections have him higher than Smith and Jigba, but maybe that'll change. Okay. Because it's Smith and Jigba is more expensive. That's the only reason I see. Would come into play. But one thing I will not do is I'm not, and look, go ahead, Noah Fant week. I am not playing Noah Fant. I do not play Noah Fant on big slates. That's the one thing I will keep out of my lineups. All right, Cincinnati, Cleveland.
Okay. Cincinnati, Cleveland. Deshaun Watson is 4,900. That's a very, very cheap price for an NFL quarterback. He lost Amari Cooper, so hard to say how he's actually going to get there. And he's got the lowest quarterback rating, I think, of the last 5 years, or something like that. Certainly of this season. And it's just, but he is 4,900. And He is at home, and Cincinnati, for whatever they are, they get shredded. Okay, people can score on them. So
everyone except for the Giants.
Everyone except for the Giants. But you have you play Jerry Jeudy and Elijah Moore. They're like 2 cents, and then obviously the more popular play, but I guess for good reason, is Njoku.
Yeah,
at 4,100. So all three of those guys with Watson to open up like all the salary, like in the rest of the lineup, feels gross, but I was about to say I've made worse plays. I mean, have I? Yeah, I guess so. And I also think that I've been saying this, but I think Cleveland's going to step up and have a good game. Actually, they were actually one possession away from winning in Philly last week.
Yeah, right. Okay. The defense did a lot of that, but yeah,
and for a team that's like given up, imagine if that like one possession went all the other way and they actually won that game. Mm-hmm. Cooper would probably stay, and Watson would be forgiven for at least a little while.
Yeah. Maybe don't kick a field goal with 3 minutes left on 4th and 3.
Something like that.
Give yourself a chance to win the game there.
That too. So I'm looking at this. I guess T. Higgins is not a bad play for the Cincinnati side, I guess. But I don't know why I still feel this way, but I just kind of want to stay away from offenses against Cleveland, especially. I mean, listen, their backs are to the wall. People are, all they're hearing all week is how the team is giving up. I mean, the defense has freaking pride. I don't know how much Cincinnati will have. Now, Chase, I will say, is like my 4th highest receiver, but it's 8,400. Right. So I don't know. I'm probably going to bite with some of the Cleveland pieces, and that's just kind of where I'm going to live.
So we're starting off with games that I like, and this is one that I feel like goes one way or the other. I've seen this. I've played this story. This is the two different slates, 2 different years. I nearly won the million on this game stack, and maybe I'm biased for that reason. But it used to be Baker as the quarterback for Cleveland, so it made a little more sense. But I think that you should be getting some exposure to this. This is a game stack. First of all, I love that we just get so much attention for Chase and Higgins in general now, and I like the idea of trying to pair them together with Burrow in some builds. I like you have the natural Jeudy, and by the way, Elijah Moore, and that's a real value. Like, I don't know what else to say. Like, he's 3,200, and he's the wide receiver 2 instead of the wide receiver 3 now. Now you could argue for Cedric Tillman, I guess, but you have cheap pieces that make it so you can get nice other plays if you do want to stack this game. But the main pieces to me would be Njoku, would be T. Higgins, Jeudy, and Chase, possibly Elijah Moore. And then I'm not getting to any of the running game, which is partly why I like to try and target this game. And these rivalry games, I'm telling you, they always end up 13-10 or 38-35. It's just for whatever reason, that's how these teams seem to play. So maybe this is the 13-10 game, but I kind of like the idea of taking a chance. And it always feels good to play a stack when you're playing the Bengals on one side because – as you've mentioned, other than one game this season, they've basically been shredded by everybody.
I mean, listen, I'm not saying to play a particular lineup or whatever, but like if you look at this, you look at my screen here. Mm-hmm. I mean, if you get that 38 whatever point game, I mean, you have all the top guys in this lineup I'm putting in here, and you have $1 billion to spend on these running backs and defenses. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, yeah, so I don't know. I'm kind of forced to do this, and the thing is that if you knew that it was either going to be 13-10, and this is something that DFS players have to understand. If you knew it was either going to be 13-10 or 35-33, you should be playing 100% of this game.
Yeah.
In GPPs. So that's the way it works.
Yep, absolutely. Wow, I guess this is what my problem is. I think almost every game I like is on the morning slate this week. All right, start this one off.
Crazy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, Jordan Love, I hate for Green Bay Houston. Jordan Love I have rated 4th right now. And other guys from this game I'm really not getting to, which is strange. Green Bay plays some big high-paced games now, and let's see what Houston's running out there now. So Collins is still an injured reserve. Diggs is 7,700. Dell's 65. Packers, you got all these questionable things again, so I guess you have to wait and see. Oh, but Robert Woods is on the team? I didn't even know that. So
yeah.
So as usual, you have to see who's playing for Green Bay. But if you get the right, your right run out, you know what I mean? Like a couple of guys out, then you could play one of the other guys. I guess you could play some of the Green Bays.
Yeah.
But yeah, what do you, and as far as the running backs, I guess Josh Jacobs wasn't too bad. Is Joe Mixon in? That's a good question.
I think he's probably going to play, is my guess.
Yeah. So I don't know. It seems like a secondary game is at best for me.
I love the whole game, and I love that you have this nice big total and everything, but no one wants to play it because the projections aren't going to like it because everybody's so expensive, and there's question marks on the Green Bay receiving core. Now, if anybody's out for Green Bay, it at least tightens it up a little bit for you between Wicks and Reed and Watson. I'm guessing that, but if all is good to go, I'll gamble with some Reed Watson with Love. I'll gamble on some Reed Dobbs with Love. And on the other side, why in the hell this is to me just a miss on the field, on the situation, that they're overwhelmingly, look, if Mixon runs the ball effectively, yes, they will ground and pound the game more without no Nico Collins, but we have no Nico Collins, and I know they're expensive. Diggs especially, I didn't get to as much, but give me Tank Dell. I'm in on this. I know the Packers secondary has been very good. I think this Houston team can click in any sort of if they get down 2 or 3 scores early, they're going to be airing it out to these guys. And I like Dell. I guess I like Diggs enough, but he's just really expensive. But I like the Dalton Schultz idea, and I like Tucker Kraft. So this is another game stack for me where I'm going to be heavy. And I know I'm not going to say that about every game. I promise. I usually am cut it down, but this feels like one where we should have just go out of your way to try and stack this game, at least in a few lineups. And I am certainly going to do that. I'll be well above the field on this game. I think we have 4 of my 5 favorites we hit in the first 5 games already. So, all right, what is up next?
You have the Colts and the Dolphins. I don't know. Pass. I'm not really getting too much of any of this game. Miami, I mean, just until Tua comes back, they just can't do anything. And listen, this is the perfect. It would be a great matchup for them.
Yep,
get things going, but they have to prove that they could get a first down. You know what I mean? Like I just can't do it. And Colts, I mean, I don't know. If it was like a 40-game slate or something like that, maybe I'd get to some of it, but I'm not really seeing much from this game.
Yeah, I think Jonathan Taylor, assuming that he plays, seems
right?
like a really good play to me. I think that you could play Anthony Richardson naked. You don't need a receiver. One of these guys will hit. I think Pittman's fine to pair with him. He's cheap enough. So I don't mind that at all. I don't want to stack the full game, but I did think there were some pieces here that are valuable, like Pittman. Again, it's weird to have a quarterback as one of your best. I mean, Anthony Richardson might be a cash game quarterback this week, and he and Geno are who you're deciding between probably. But he's also not getting any. It's not like a natural pairing you have with him as we've seen so far. He's put up big games where no receivers have really done anything, and quite a few times. But if you're not playing him, play Taylor or play some Taylor. I'd like to get to something on the other side. It's a great pace matchup. I can't figure out what that thing might be. I guess if A-Chain is out, I think Mostert is the play. And if A-Chain is in, maybe we just play A-Chain and just roll with it. But it feels like a lot of question marks on the Miami side for me. And Indy, I just have the Richardson as a priority. And I do think Jonathan Taylor is a tremendous play as well.
Okay,
Philly
so
at the Giants.
So Giants against Philly. I feel really bad for the Giants right now. I mean, you have these 3 questionable tags of the receivers. I don't even know who's going to be playing. The reason I feel bad is like Daniel Jones has been playing great. I think he's been actually very good this year.
He's had moments.
Yeah, and he just has no. I mean, like when we finally had a little bit of hope when Neighbors just kind of broke out. And now he's going to be out probably another week, I guess. But what's the last thing it says here?
No, I think he's in this week.
Well, I'll say this then. I mean, okay, we'll get to Philly in a second. I do have Daniel Jones rated number 2 as far as points per dollar on the slate, and Neighbors is really good. Okay,
Yep.
and Philly has not exactly been the Bears, the 86 Bears on defense. Okay, so
Especially the passing game. That's true.
yeah, so I'm kind of down with the Giant side of that, particularly if Neighbors is in, and then if Neighbors is in, you could put another guy in too, like whoever's in. I don't even know who's going to be in, but whoever these guys are in, I prefer like to not pay 6,100 for Wan'Dale Robinson. You know what I mean? Like, but we'll see who's in, we'll see who's out. But on the Philly side, I mean, I don't know if you don't play Saquon Barkley going back to New York. I mean, you just don't like money as far as I'm concerned. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't care if he's 10,000. He's call it revenge, call it whatever, call it he wants to just play well in New York. You know what I mean? Like it's the only thing that could stop, in my opinion, Barkley from really smashing is if the Giants are like really good. You know what I mean? And if the Giants are really good and can stop the run, and the Giants have been very feisty this year. They won in Seattle. They can be very, very feisty. But if Philadelphia can get something going, they'll and this is kind of a sacrilege to say, like if they have like first and goal on the 1, they will probably give it to Barkley instead of letting Hurts get the tush push.
They've been doing it a little bit more anyway.
What's that?
They've been doing that a little bit more this year anyway on both short yardage and goal line stuff.
Yeah. So I don't know what Barkley's like touchdown prop is. I don't play them. He's got to be a favorite. I mean, to get a touchdown, I would imagine.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's even a big deal to be a favorite. I've never played one of these things.
Yeah, Saberson has him at a 90% chance of having a rushing touchdown, and they've got him at 12% as a receiving touchdown.
90%.
90% of it to get.
I was going to say 55% is a lot. Okay,
I'm honestly shocked to see that number. I was blown away by it.
I should probably play the under then if that's the case. I mean, if it's if I can get plus 200 or something, he doesn't score a touchdown, I'd probably do that. But But you just have to do this. He's got like 30-point upside in this game. And if you especially play lineups like this, where you have like all this money, like for running backs and stuff like that, I think you just kind of have to do it. I guess that's all I have from this game.
Yeah. So this is the question: is how the Giants have to look. There's things going on all over social media about how the Giants kid is a better GM than him because he's talking about getting rid of Saquon was a joke. There's the footage of the owner saying, God, I'd hate to see Saquon if he was in Philadelphia. We can't have that happen. He's the most popular Giant of in the last 20 years or whatever. But he's going to go back there. It's also they're going to feed him the ball because they haven't actually been successful lately moving the ball offensively the last couple games. So I do think that Barkley is a strong play. I am worried that the Giants, to save face, are literally going to stack the hell out of the box, which means that you're going to see both really underowned Philadelphia receivers, and they're expensive, but maybe you bring them in the mix. And I will take a thing from Matthew Berry. For those of you guys who don't know, probably the most important fantasy football guy that we've had ever, I guess. His number one receiver of the week, and there's nothing to do with pricing. It's not DFS. His number one receiver of the week, forgetting just overall, is Malik Neighbors, and I cannot disagree with it. Philadelphia is again, you can't run on them, but you can throw on them. And Neighbors is going to be popular, and I will be a part of that popularity. I think he's very clearly, price considered, got to be the number one receiver in my opinion. But I don't mind the idea of running back like AJ Brown or Devontae Smith on the other side if they do. Again, speculating that maybe they do stack that box. So the other one you have the Calcaterra, who's cheap because we have no Goddard.
Maybe no Goddard, right?
So that's the Calcaterra I have with a big question mark as a spend down. But the main plays are Barkley and Neighbors as far as I'm concerned. And if you wanted to get speculative, I think using the Philadelphia passing game might be a way to get different on this slate, even though it's not my first thought what to do. Vegas and the Rams.
Yep. So Rams are 7-point favorite, and Kyron Williams is a legit bell cow, and to me, he's the best play. That's just what it is. The other interesting piece for me is what to do with these Raiders receivers. Okay, so Devontae Adams is finally gone. Jacoby Myers is scheduled to not practice, but from what I hear, he's probably playing, and both these guys are probably pretty good, like Myers and Tucker. And addition to that, Brock Bowers at 5,800, it seems like a lot. It does seem like a lot, but he's gonna, he's one of the best tight ends in football as far as like receiving, as far as I'm concerned. So yeah. So I like that. And as far as like pass catchers, I can't imagine Cup playing, but
I think he'll play.
But he's been practicing.
I don't see why.
Well, if he plays, I mean, why don't you just play him? You know what I mean? I don't know. Yeah. I mean, I can't imagine him playing him if he's not ready to play. I mean, they're an 8-point freaking favorite. You know what I mean? If he's even remotely questionable, they wouldn't play him, I think. Yeah, why not? So I like Cup. Then if he plays, Kyren Williams, I think, is clearly the best running back on the slate. And we'll get to some other. We didn't talk about what's his name about Bijan Robinson back from Atlanta. He looked good, but again, even though he like smashed, I guess last week, you still have that Tyler Algier situation over there, and they like giving him the ball, and he's earned it. Tyler Algier, if you want to. Mm-hmm. I think Kyren Williams, he's got the best game script. Listen, Tony Pollard's a good play, not as great of a game script. Kenneth Walker's pretty good play. Saquon. So I think it's between Walker, Saquon, and Kyren Williams. I just think that Kyren Williams, because of the game script, I just think he's the best player.
Yeah, this is no one is going to play this game, and you're going to have to explain to me kind of why, because I don't understand it. The Rams have not shown the ability to defend anybody so far this season. They also, with Cup, have a powerful offense, or at least can have a powerful offense. Kyren Williams, I agree, priority play. Look, it's nothing shocking. Kyren and Barkley are my favorite running backs, but kind of hard to get to both of them unless we do one of those Cleveland things or something like we talked about earlier. Or you could play a stack in this game with Stafford with Cup and Kyren Williams. I think that's a very reasonable route to go. We also have Whittington questionable, Myers questionable, but someone has to explain to me, we're really just going to give up on the cheap Trey Tucker at 4,200 against a defense again that has not been good.
This guy's really bad, though, isn't he, O'Connell?
Who cares? I'll take the 12 targets for a 4,200 receiver.
I suppose.
I don't have any problem. You don't have to play O'Connell. You just play the Tucker as a run back, or Madison even, who's not going to get any ownership, or Bowers, who will get ownership.
Okay.
But I'm into this game a little bit. So this would be the other game that I have as like a big questionable. I have a hard time when I try to build. My screen doesn't want to let me do it, so I might have to just force it in on a sim or something like that in the lottery, because I do think this is the kind of game that sneaky could end up winning somebody all the money, and it's just not going to be owned very much. But you have such good pricing on Myers, Tucker. Obviously Kyren Williams and Cup are expensive, but I think that they're awesome plays, and they're going to get like zero ownership. And also Parkinson is at the same time, the tight end. So there's pieces in this game, and I'm looking for stuff in the afternoon, and this is one of the games that I found something to do with. So I'm into this one.
So I think that this next game has a good chance to win someone all the cheese. The Carolina-Washington game. And I think it could come from the Carolina side, actually. Because I think that Washington's going to have the lead for most of the time. So Carolina's going to have the game script, and they've actually been talking about Bryce Young maybe one day like getting the reins back. Okay. So Andy Dalton, he don't give an F, and so he's going to be slinging it, and Deontay Johnson is just been really, really good, and Chuba Hubbard has been really, really good. In addition to that, there's this turkey for the tight end at 2,900, who had 7 targets last week. He didn't get many fantasy points.
Damian Sanders,
right? But if you get Tremble out again, you could put him in, and Washington, you can throw on them. You could do a lot of things on their defense. So I like this a lot. And clearly, I mean, like the Washington guys are going to be in play because Carolina hasn't been able to stop anybody either. So you want to play McLaurin, you want to play what's his name? Even the running back, Robinson, I guess, Eckler, maybe some Ertz, but I don't know. For some reason, I think I'm going to be more into the Carolina side of this from a fantasy perspective.
I get it. You have the cheap Dalton, and if the matchup is right, and we've seen Dalton do nothing but look pretty damn good. You know what I mean? To be honest with you, he's looked better than all but about 15 guys in the NFL as a quarterback for the most part. So I'm a little lower. Again, I've seen some conflicting lines, and even right now, Saberson doesn't have a line written up for this game. But as far as I'm concerned, I don't actually thought I'd try to take the under stance on this game, but I don't really know what the stance is going to be because I'm having trouble with the projections a little bit. So I can see the Goldie's got, Chuba Hubbard, fine. I get it with the matchup thing. I probably don't end up doing the Chuba Hubbard thing that much this week. Maybe I'll change my mind. Right now, that's not my plan. If Ryan Robinson is back, I don't think I don't mind it. I don't love it either. So I'm a little tricky there, but if he's out, I would go back to Eckler, even though I don't know what happened to him after the first quarter where he had 11 fantasy points and didn't have any after that last week. Terry McLaurin and Deontay Johnson, I think, are both excellent plays, but especially Deontay Johnson. Zach Ertz and Jatavion Sanders in play, but nobody I'd cross out, but nobody I'd play. So I'm not really as interested in the stack of this game. Like I understand it, but I just named 5 other stacks that I like, so I don't want to get too overexposed. And I guess this is my one that I'm probably cutting out, with the exception. I had a rule coming into the year. Remember, the rule was always 10% Jaden Daniels stacks. And I might have lost Cheeks there for a second, but he'll be right back. Oh, wait, let's get him back on there. There you go.
Yeah, just got back.
Yeah. But I think that this is a game that I'm probably going to be a little bit just underweight. Just in reality, that's the facts.
Okay, right. So Kansas City, San Francisco. It's a repeat of something. It could be a preview of something, as usual. And you're going to get a high-owned Juju Smith-Schuster. I mean, he's 4K. I think he can get 0 though. You know what I mean? I don't know. I just think he can get 0. I would rather pay the money and play Xavier Worthy if I was going to play Kansas City guys. I think Kelsey 6,300 just hasn't really done it for 6,300, and San Francisco's tough. Running backs. Kareem Hunt, I mean, they fed him, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And this is, I can't believe I keep saying, I say this every once in a while. I think this could be the game where Kansas City just finally just doesn't put up enough to win. You know, their offense has been bad all year, but yet they just, you know what? They have arguably the best quarterback in history. You know what I mean? Like behind center, and part of it is just his incredible ability, and part of it is just, don't call it Joe Montana, whatever, but guy just knows how to freaking win. And Andy Reid knows how to win. That's why the team is always like that, counted out, and they're underdogs in the Super Bowl, and stuff like this, and they just keep winning. They know how to manage the clock. They know how to do whatever. And whatever. Maybe with San Francisco getting a little healthier finally at home, maybe this is the 27-10 game that people have been waiting for against Kansas City. So I'm going to probably be off of the Juju Smith-Schuster. I'm going to be off of the Kansas City offense in general. As far as the San Francisco side, 7,600 for Mason. No thanks. Now, if in fact Mason is out somehow, boy, 6,600 Garendo's a little too much also, I think, even if you get him.
Yeah.
Samuel, Ayuk, they're all just kind of expensive. Juwan Jennings, now that Kittle's back. I mean, it's kind of scary, but I think I kind of want to not play much from this game.
I think we're on the same page here. I actually, everything you said is exactly what I thought. You get that this is the game. Maybe they lose 27-10 type of deal. Like I really think that. And in San Francisco in absolute must win mode. Not absolute must win. Last week was absolute must win mode for them against the division opponent at 2-3. Now at 3-3, but they want their revenge. This game means a lot more to them than it does to KC, although KC just keeps doing their thing.
KC has like a complete cupcake schedule like the rest of the season. So they can lose this game and not care, honestly.
They could lose 40-0 and not care. Yeah, it means nothing. And as I've been saying, Kelce will get it going as the season, and he has. He's gotten it going more. But I think I'm thinking of Kelce more for late December, January, more than I am right now. If there was anything, I do think it's interesting that you have all this ownership on Juju and like there's no ownership on San Francisco really. Maybe taking just a shot with either Ayuk or Samuel is an interesting way to go. Or Kittle, I guess, throw him into the mix. These guys all have massive ceilings. I think Debo would be my favorite, but I'd consider one of these San Francisco guys. It's a good, it's a tough matchup. Like they're both good defensive teams, but you still have a high total because both teams can score. I think it's interesting to maybe shuffle those guys in. So I'm only interested in the lowest owned pieces. San Francisco receivers is what I have written down.
All right. Well, you know what? We've managed the time pretty well because my dad is actually just walking in.
Perfect.
Yeah. So we can wrap this up, and we'll see you. Obviously throughout the course of the day and tomorrow for other sports, but Sunday at 11 a.m. for more of this.
Yeah.
The showdown tonight is going to be a freaking wild scene. But we'll talk about that a little later.
Yeah.
Again, overall, I would say my obvious games to a target would be the Seattle Atlanta game. And then I don't know if you even want to call this a sleeper game, but I think the Carolina game, specifically the Carolina side, I think is pretty good. And the Cleveland Cincinnati thing that I discussed at length as well.
Yeah, we're on the page with that. My favorites are Seattle, Atlanta, and I love the Houston, Green Bay. Anytime there's a guys who are going to be priced out because the pricing, I think that's a time you try to get those guys in when they're down people. So I'm into that one. Anyway, it should be a fun week. Like you said, we'll have more 11 a.m. Eastern. Good luck, everybody. Sheets, have a good day, and I'll see you. We'll see you guys at 6:30. I'll see you guys.